So thank you for being here. We are from Cleevio, as already mentioned. For you who doesn't know Cleevio, it's just a company. We build digital solutions, apps, websites, like kind of this stuff. And we want to share the experience of our path because, first of all, maybe, how many of you are iOS developers? Everybody? Or maybe, how many of you are not iOS developers, sorry? Okay, so
that's also a lot.
Okay, so this is basically our experience of how we introduced SwiftUI and Combine in our projects in production. And we really hit a lot of roadblocks. And it's what we want to share, like what we hit, how we solve it. And yeah, if you can have something from here, it would be amazing for us. So maybe, okay, I cannot.
Yeah.
Okay, first problem.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, hola, I'm Daniel. I'm from Peru. I don't know if somebody here speaks Spanish, maybe one guy. Two? Yeah, okay. I was in contact with that. That's nice. Yeah, because the other guy is from my team, so it doesn't count. So. Well, as I said before, I'm iOS developer for almost like 7 years, kinda. I've been in Cleevio more than 2 years. And well, in my free time, I just like to do like every sport that I can. I skate, I do jiu-jitsu, I read books like quite a lot. And I have a dog, so I walk with her a lot as well. So this is me.
And yeah, that's me. My name is Thành, but you can call me Peppa if you can't spell my name. It's okay. Something about me. I'm working for Cleevio, obviously. It's almost, I think, 2.5 years. And fun fact, I'm actually working remotely. I'm trying to work abroad. So if you have some question like what's the nice city to living as a nomad, just ask me after this presentation and we have small talk about that. And yeah, I'm trying to surf, but I'm not good at it, so sorry about that. Let's talk a bit about the agenda, what we will talk about. So we will start about why we think about the SwiftUI, what's the beginning of that, why we think that was a good idea or bad idea, you will see. Then we will talk about original architecture, which was composed for the UIKIT. We will talk about the risks, which we knew, but also what we didn't know, and obstacles during development. That will be, I think, the interesting part, because there will be fuck-ups and everyone love to hear what's another person didn't do right. Then we move to transition to Combine, our architecture, how it evolved, and then we will end with the conclusion, some small tips and tricks from us, for us. So these slides actually popped out to my mind when I saw in WWDC, I think in 2019, about the SwiftUI. It was amazing experience for me because it was something new and I wanted to try it. I was eager to implement in the first project, but it's at the beginning. So we started to talk in our team how we will process this new feature, and we try to find the best way so we don't have problems in the future.
Okay, so yeah, I think everybody here wanted to really try SwiftUI. If you come from UIKIT, you can see the difference quite easily, and I think everybody wants to try it as fast as it can. But in the company, having clients relying on us on being on having stable apps, do we really want to start using SwiftUI? That was the question that we asked ourselves maybe 2 years ago as well. We were always struggling with this question, should we, our architecture is quite good, why do we want to do this migration? And there were these 3 points that basically was the biggest ones. The first one is that SwiftUI is new, there's no much APIs, it's a new framework and there's a lot of missing things, for example, pull to refresh, the swipe action in the list. I'm talking about iOS 13 in that moment, so maybe now it's much better. Well, it's much better. So then we have the iOS support. In the case, I don't know if it's readable, but it's iOS 13 onwards. So will clients accept this? Usually clients, when we are talking to them, they always tell us, we want to support iOS 10, iOS 11, and even like now or like 1 year ago. And it was always, okay, if we want to support iOS 10, probably it's not a good idea to try. No, we won't be able to. But yeah, so this was always like one of the roadblocks. But starting like last year, like clients started to become a little bit more flexible. Like we were proposing, hey, like the users in iOS usually like migrate pretty fast, so maybe it makes sense. In your case, if it's a application for like some old target, okay, maybe we can like be a little bit more like iOS 11, iOS 12. But if the target is quite for a young group, I think it will be okay. And they started accepting this. So this was one of the things that it was like the breaking point, let's say, because we thought, okay, we can do it. So do we want to do it? And finally, it was like, there's of course going to be new bugs to solve. Like it's new, so there wasn't that many articles, many like Stack Overflow questions, and like UIKIT had a lot of time. So everything was possible in UIKIT, but in SwiftUI, we didn't know how hard it would be.
Okay, so let's talk about how our architecture looks like before. I believe that every companies or agencies has kind of like design pattern which they use heavily. In our company, we're using MVVM plus C, which means model, view model, and view controller plus coordinator. I think everyone knows this design architecture pattern, so I shouldn't like explain it. For like binding between view model or view controller, we are using heavily RxSwift for bindings. And the reason why we are trying to use like one design pattern for every project is that it should be easy to, you know, when someone moves from one project to another one, to like easily jump to that. So they will not struggle, and they just need to read like the specification of the project, but the rest, like how the communication between coordinator or view model, it should be like understandable. So that's how we like begin, but of course we need to like improve it, right? But before we started, we did like kind of like research about the SwiftUI. So we tried to find like what problems can be if we use the SwiftUI. The first and I think the most biggest problem which we found out was the navigation, because the SwiftUI has kind of different like the mindset comparing to UIKIT. So if we want to use the SwiftUI, we find that one of the options is, for instance, using composable architecture. That was like huge, I think, boom about that. Everyone read about that. We also tried, but we didn't like it because, you know, we like to stick what we know. But yeah, we had to somehow to solve this problem. Another issue which we found during this kind of like research was presentation of models. In UIKIT it was super easy to do it, but in the SwiftUI, not that easy, to be honest. And lastly but not least, we use quite often UI view representable. What I wanted to say, because the SwiftUI at the beginning was in the early stage and the UIKIT is already like for a couple of years, the things which we like expect to have in the SwiftUI, it actually doesn't have. So what we can do is actually wrap this UIKIT and it can be used in the SwiftUI, which was amazing, of course, but that's not how we wanted to do. Wait.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, so we knew the risk, right? Like, so okay, I think we can do it. We know what will happen, but the reality was that it was like totally like a mess project. Like, I just put like some commits there, but to be honest, there was much more. Of course, not all of them was just fixed on iOS 14, no. But yeah, it was basically like this. Like we put the app almost in production, and I remember like the QAs, almost like one client, I think, it was like really upset because they were testing iOS 13 and we didn't test that much. And yeah, so we had to fix it like hotfix ASAP. So things that we didn't know, for example, I hope you can read, but yeah, the keyword avoidance in iOS 14. Like in iOS 13, basically we have to do it manually. Like we can observe with a notification center or just use RxSwift extensions to do this. But in iOS 14, the Apple team introduced the keyword avoidance, which is great. At least in iOS 15, it's working amazing. iOS 14, Then we have the geometry reader, which is amazing in iOS 15 as well. Because in iOS 14, you will see like one of the focus that we had. we use a lot of UI view representable. We thought it would be maybe just like for the pull to refresh, but no, like scroll view, we did like 3, 4 swipes to actions. For the maps, yeah, you have to do a lot of this. Then we have the UI hosting controller, that it's a great way to integrate UIKit with SwiftUI. It's amazing if you use it in the good way. Of course, we didn't. It was also a fuck up. I will talk about this in a minute. And the last one, we didn't have that much of a trouble, but I like to put it because I think it's important. Like even with the lazy H stack that was introduced in iOS 14, if I remember correctly, it's still not as performant as collection view cells. So it's one of the things that you have to take in mind as well. So what I was saying about the hosting controller is, like, this is one of the things, one of the layouts that we had in a client project. Basically, before trying SwiftUI and Combine, we were using a lot of compositional layout and default data sources, and it was really great with UIKit. We loved it. And we kind of had this layout already like in a previous project, so we were just trying to reuse it. The thing is that, of course, we thought, okay, so we can reuse it, but let's just try to use the SwiftUI for the small views. And that was the first big fuck up. In that moment, we thought it was good. I hope you can see it. Maybe like we can turn off the lights, but
can you see it?
Can you see it? What is happening? Yeah? I think I don't know if we can turn it off, but. No? Okay, sorry. Okay, so.
Sorry.
I will explain it then. Like, for you that cannot see it, we basically have a hosting controller in a collection view cell. And we thought, okay, maybe it will work, right? Like collection view cell will be reusing it, but no, we were that close to the truth. Like what happened after this was basically, you know, like we were testing in the simulator, it's a little laggy, maybe in the real device will be better. It's still a little laggy, but maybe the user won't like find it. It found it, and it was pretty upset. And yeah, I remember this ticket, and what we had to do basically was rewrite all the compositional layout, all the layout in SwiftUI. And after this, of course, like the tester was super happy because it was so obvious, like the difference. So maybe one of the first tips here is don't try to like really integrate that much UIKit and SwiftUI. Like if you have the view, just SwiftUI, UI hosting controller, like put the view and that's it. Don't mix more than you need. Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the navigation. As I said before, we knew that we will have struggle with this. So we tried to like find kind of like solution for that. And when we like doing that research, we found that UI hosting controller exists. And when we found that UI hosting controller exists and read like how it works and what should like supposed to use, we thought that it's a great idea to just replace the view control with the UI hosting controller. To be honest, it sounds great, it works, but in the few more slides you will see what happened when we try to implement this. So just wait for that.
Okay, so my best friend here, Geometry Reader, I was really hyped when I like found it. I was using it a lot. You can see in the GIF, it was basically working not that good. This is iOS 14. In iOS 15, of course, was amazing. In iOS 14, you go to one tap, you return, and then there's this amazing animation that like the client didn't ask, but it was there, so yeah. Yeah, basically what was happening was, like, first of all, like there is some discrepancies between previous OS versions regarding Geometry Reader. In iOS 13, it works one way. In iOS 14, it works another way. Like you can see it in this bug. But the problem here was that we were using a Geometry Reader for the big screen. And in the small component, we were also using a Geometry Reader because in both cases, we needed some dynamic width. And yeah, as you can see, it was just like really messing up with the layout. So the solution was, like the light, sorry. But basically, we're using the Geometry Reader again, but in the background now. Like the problem was we were putting Geometry Readers in the view hierarchy. But if you just start using it in the background and don't affect the view hierarchy, it will be working much better. It's the same code basically, but now we are just like using the preference key to communicate the size to whoever needs it. And this basically solves the previous code. So this is also one of the tips. Don't use Geometry Reader. If you're using iOS 15, it's working fine in the view hierarchy. If you're supporting a couple of versions previous, don't use it. I think this would work much, much better. Then the keyboard, this is the keyboard avoidance. Like this is iOS 14. When you go to one screen and then go back, you will see this amazing animation that the client didn't want as well. So what was happening there? iOS 15, of course, everything was fine. And basically, like in iOS 14, as I mentioned, like the keyboard avoidance was introduced. So now SwiftUI was handling all the like adaptation of the layout when the keyboard appeared. But as you can see, it's a little buggy, at least when you are transitioning from one view to another. So again, how we solve this? In some cases, it makes sense to just like use the if available, ignore the keyboard. Like we don't want that. Of course, Apple doesn't recommend that much because yeah, SwiftUI actually handles pretty well. But still, there is a little bit like there is a little bit of bugs. So we had to introduce this, and it was working good. For iOS 14, we didn't want to like do anything because basically like SwiftUI doesn't handle the keyboard appearance, so it was okay. In some cases, we had to even be more creative. So as you can see here, when we were pushing, if it's iOS 15, everything is fine, just push it. But if not, first we will dismiss the keyboard, and then after a fraction of seconds, we will like actually say push it. This also like saved us because the layout was just getting really messy, so it was horrible.
Okay, so my turn again. As you can see on the GIF, that's how we felt during like our transitioning from RxSwift to Combine. So let's just like briefly ask, everyone knows what RxSwift or Combine is, or is there someone who have no idea? I can see one person there like behind, he doesn't understand. Like so let's just like quickly make like brief about that. RxSwift and Combine is actually like reactive programming principle. It's actually save your life, and it's actually kind of like funny to use if you know how to use it, you know. But the learning curve is kind of hard at the beginning, so just don't be too scared. Once you get it, once you understand it, you will love it. At least I love it. So that's the thing. But Combine is actually introduced with in WWDC 2019 with the SwiftUI. So again, when we saw the Combine, we just like, yeah, we want it. We just want everything there. Let's talk about that, put it everywhere. It was amazing. But again, we tried to make it like smooth. So we just have like internal like meeting, like have discussion how we can handle this situation. Just a few things about this. Combine is introduced in 2019, as I said. It supports iOS, I think, 13 and upward. RxSwift, iOS 9 and upward. So yeah, the reason why we like thinking to use Combine, there's like several. First of all, it was introduced from Apple, so it makes sense to use that because we don't want to use like third-party dependencies, right? So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to use. And yeah, there was like several more. Like for instance, when we like check how the Combine work, what we really like is that when we using Combine, you need to always specify the error type. What does it mean? If you have some crash, it shouldn't happen during the Combine because you're always saying like what kind of error it's supposed to return. Yeah, but in RxSwift, because you have like several of several types, and if you don't catch it correctly, it can crash. So good things about the Combine, plus point for them. So let's try it, right?
Okay, so how did we like somehow introduce Combine to our architecture? I hope like you won't hate me or you won't hate us because of this, but we put both in one project. And yeah, I can hear the laugh right now. But let me tell you why. Like first of all, we were having too many projects and we had to like make some decisions. We didn't have the time to actually try Combine or like do some demo projects. So we didn't know the full risk of it. What we knew was our architecture was working a lot, like it was really working good in different projects. So we knew from UI hosting controller, like to the left, from UI hosting controller to the left, that RxSwift was working good. We knew how to work with it. We knew how to like send the bindings to the view model coordinators. Because we were trying SwiftUI, and SwiftUI is like best friend with Combine, we said, okay, you know what, let's put some boundaries. SwiftUI will just talk to Combine, and if we want to like send something to the view model, we will use somehow RxSwift, and from there, no more Combine. So we put some boundaries between developers. It was working good, let's say. Like you cannot see that much, but basically we were just like having the controller, and whenever like the view model sent something, we were just like putting it in the publish property wrapper for like, we had two view models. Like I have to mention this. It's a weird thing.
Just too late.
Yeah, it was a little bit weird. So we have the main view model, we have the like view controller, and in the view we had like the SwiftUI view, and there was like this dummy view model. Let's say it like it's a weird combination, but it was working like good. Of course, we put some boundaries for like anybody who wanted to enter the project, because you have to know RxSwift Combine. It wasn't that a good idea, but it was working fine. We did this in one project, and like so far, like if you follow the boundaries, I think it was okay. So this is how we did it.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit observable object. It was introduced with the Combine, and when we read about that, we actually think like it's a good thing to use as a like for the view model, right? Because in the view model, when something changes, we want to inform the view. So let's use it. Like we use in the project, it works again. But like I think QA is like came like late, and that guy, he sent me back like the task like it doesn't work like as I expect, you know. So I just checking like for several hours like in Stack Overflow like what's happening there, and the problem is that every time when the view is every time when the view model change, the view is recreated again. And unfortunately, also the view model will set the default value from that. What does it mean? So it means that it doesn't do what I expect, but thankfully in the next version of the Combine, we get the state object. And the state object works a little bit like observable object and the state. So every time when the view model change, it's actually the view is recreated, but the data or variables inside the view model stay and they won't change. So maybe some of you guys right now may be asking, what should I use for the view model? Well, of course, answer is not that simple, but what I think is that if you have iOS 14 upwards, you should always stick with the state object. But there's a big, well, I will not say again, there's a big but. If you are injecting, or if you use like injection to the like view, you should consider, of course, the observable object, because in that case, it makes sense. So yeah, was everything good with the Combine? I think so. To be honest, as I said before, our architecture heavily used the RxSwift. So when we started to like understand how the Combine works, it's actually the same, to be honest. The only difference is like you need to like understand different naming of the Combine. That's like for me like the only thing what I need to understand. But like the rest, like the principle of the reactive programming, it was like totally same. So Apple did a great job. Good point for them. Again, yay. There's no Android. I have a joke about the Android, but I will like keep to myself. So yeah, but as I said, RxSwift is like here longer, which means they have like nice sugar method, which I, used to use, such as materialize or with latest from or driver. You can do that with the Combine, of course, but you need to put more lines of code. So what we did is we tried to firstly find like some third-party libraries which exist, but when we checked the code, we thought that it's like too much for us. So instead of that, we just choose like what we need and create like simple extension for that, and we are using in our projects. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say in this slide, I think. If not, I will tell you later.
So Combine was working well until it didn't. Basically, like we got this problem quite often, which as you can see, it's not doing that much. Like we have some side effect there, we have some filter, and then we were just sending some route, some action. And all the time, like Xcode was complaining, like, you know what, this is too much, like please break it up a little bit. And for example, we never had this problem with RxSwift. Like even though we were making a lot of chaining of the operators, it was pretty easy for the compiler to like knew what was happening, but in Combine not. So one of the things that we did was either like grab some of the code and put it in a function, like to make it simpler, or just like break it up, like and like put the type that you want and just like chain the types together. Like it will make it simpler and it will work. So yeah, like the reason why is this happening, because I don't know if you have seen the code of Combine. Every time you change some operator to it, basically it's like you put it a map and a flap map, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why you use the erase type, erase to any publisher. But in these cases, it's hard to use, so we just had this problem. So yeah, just in case you're using Combine, try to make it always short and just change those like variables between, not everything like this.
So again, a question: should I use RxSwift or Combine? Again, it depends. For my opinion, if you should support like iOS 13 and down, and you want to really use like reactive programming principles, then you have no choice than RxSwift, you know. But if you are starting in a new project and the client, or if like it doesn't have to be client, right? If you want to do like some internal project and you can support like iOS 13, ideally iOS 14 upward, I would recommend with the Combine, because as I said before, RxSwift and Combine is the same thing. So if you understand like the principles, it doesn't matter what you will choose. And yeah.
And just for the final like section, we just want to show how we like make the architecture evolve. Like we started with this paper already like explaining, so I'm not going to go deeper, but it was pretty simple, you can see. And now if we go to the first iteration of the SwiftUI paper, this is yours.
Yeah, as you can see, it looks mess. Well, it works, but it's mess, right? Because what we saw before, it was just like few bubbles, and now we have like, well, I will not count, it's a lot. Well, what's the reason? Like, as you can see here, there's a first view model, and then we have like the second view model for the SwiftUI. Well, because the reason was like we just wanted to like extend what we had before, and that's what happened. Also, as I said before, we had like UI hosting control there. So yeah, nice graph, right? But we learned from that, we tried to improve it, and we had with the second iteration. And it looks like this. Actually, that's what we are using right now. So don't ask me, is it work perfectly? We are not sure right now, but maybe in the next presentation, we will tell you like what's good or bad is with this architecture. But let's like keep it open. But what's changed between the first and second iteration is that we remove like 2 view models, and we have just one. And inside the coordinator, we have like the helper, which always initiate the SwiftUI as a wrapper as a wrapper with the UI hosting controller. So I think it's look kind of similar to what we had at the beginning, and it works. So we are kind of happy with what we have right now.
I mean, like we went back to where we started, and we like the previous architecture, and now it's like using SwiftUI Combine. We like it so far, but we will see in some months. So the conclusion, basically this is how we felt in the first iteration. Yeah, we had the complaints from the client, from the QA, and yeah, we didn't know if like SwiftUI was the right choice. We stick with it. We learned, and now I think we're happy using it. So yeah, just some tips just to end this. Like if you will use SwiftUI and Combine, and you will want to support iOS 13 onwards, test it as much as you can. Like talk to the QA team. Like really, basically, maybe test only on iOS 13 probably, because iOS 15 will work. We never find anything there. So just be careful with that. If you are using iOS 13, list view is not that good. It's a little bit buggy. We had some problems. We had to remove it from it, and we were just like using like the normal VS stack. And then like the previews, if you have a good Mac, because like I remember one of the colleagues in the team like had a like really bad Mac and he was complaining. Yeah, some guy there, like maybe he will share his angry. But yeah, he was always complaining, man, SwiftUI is horrible, like the previews that never work. It works if you have a good Mac, and if also you like the couple of views. We're creating like large views at the beginning. Now also we learned, and actually they are pretty good. If you create, for example, some text field, and you have an error state, you have like a long text field state, a placeholder, you can put all together in the preview, group it, and it will be just amazing to see it. So yeah.
Also, talk every time with the design team. I know like design always, it can be sometimes hard because they have like, you know, the mind and they want to have like beauty, but sometimes we can't do that, right? So if you see there's like some roadblock or you can't do that, just talk with them, explain the situation, and I believe that they will like help you, or at least I hope. This tip is actually from my side because when I started with the SwiftUI, I love it, as I said, but even I get like simple like scene, it doesn't look like same as in the preview, you know? And I was like, oh my God, like what's happened there? Like I tried to find it, nothing worked. And then I just changed line from 63 to 62, just put it a little bit up, and it works. And the point is because the modifier order matters hugely in SwiftUI. So this is like my small tip. If you think it doesn't look like what you expect, try to maybe change the orders and maybe it will work. And the last things, be bold, because you know if you don't try it, you will not know how it works. And yeah, at the beginning it can be hard. Maybe you can get bold, but I think it's worth it. So try it.
So thank you. That's it. So maybe do you have any questions for us?
No one?
Do we convince you to use SwiftUI in production? No one? Okay. So then...
There's a question
there is
actually.
now. Okay, yes. Okay.
Are you using SwiftUI in every new project or?
Yes, yeah. We...
More UIKit?
Yeah, it depends. Like we're trying to just stick with SwiftUI now that we have the knowledge, because we started like 1 year ago. We have already 2 apps in production with SwiftUI, and now each new project that comes, we start with that. But of course, we need to see it. Like sometimes, like the deadlines are too strict. Yeah. We know how to do it in UIKit. Maybe we could use a little bit, but if we can and we have the time, SwiftUI for sure.
Combine when the Swift concurrency is here in the future?
Sorry, please repeat the question.
Yes.
Yeah, we forgot it.
So do we need Combine even though like now is Swift concurrency? Well, yeah. Like it really depends, right? Because like maybe you want to like compliment me, but first of all, like async concurrency is mainly for iOS 15. You can use it in iOS 13 as well, because now it's in SCO 13. But like the main things are from iOS 15, so I wouldn't like go that way yet. Also, it really depends on your style, I would say, because we were used to RxSwift a lot. Yeah. Like we were using it, all the team know how to use it. So Combine made more sense for us. Yeah, maybe that's.
I think there was more question.
I was wondering if you have some performance issues with using VStack instead of the table view.
Okay. So the question was like, is there some performance issue with the VStack? Let's try it. To be honest, I didn't check it, but maybe our team, like, what do you think about that? We should do like some performance tests and make some article about that, right? So just wait for us. In the next couple of weeks, we will maybe see the article from us.
Yeah, but anyway, we didn't have performance issue. We have just one app that has like some history, and we paginate there. But like so far, we haven't found any. But anyway, it's not like we're doing a lot of like formatting in the cell per se. It's just like some labels, and that's it. So far, no, but we will see. Okay. Okay. So
It's going. More
Okay,
questions.
Thanks. Just to reiterate on the Swift concurrency question.
Okay.
The reason why you don't use the Swift concurrency is mainly because of the lack of API for the concurrency in the SwiftUI on iOS 13 or 14, sorry, 14, or because it's just you know too complicated for you to write all the services and other layers in concurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is like, why are we not using Swift concurrency, right?
Yes.
Not sure, sorry. Well, I think as a colleague mentioned before, we are really like used to RxSwift. So Combine was like first choice, and I think like if you know like the RxSwift, like the transition to the Combine is super easy. But I think like these two things is almost like similar. Like it's just as my colleague said, it depends on your style. But we choose this path, and so far it's okay. So that's what I will say about that.
Yeah, like for sure, it's also most like because of the team we're used to it. But if you are like starting a new app and you're like supporting iOS 15, like my personal opinion is I will go with like async concurrency. It's like going much better. Like I think it has more support from Apple, I would say, because you know like Combine is not getting more things now. We will see in the new WWDC, but yeah, for now we are also like trying to see if it makes sense for us, but we still not probably won't do it so soon. So. Mm-hmm.
Did you consider some bridging from RxSwift to Combine for a little bit more smoother transition in your model coordinators? There are some simple frameworks how to transition that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you consider that, or have you tried it?
So the question was if we consider how to like bridge RxSwift and Combine together to make it easy for us. So
Well, I never thinking about it, to be honest. So that's like tough question. I mean, as I said again, RxSwift and Combine is kind of similar. So we didn't think about the transitioning and doing like some kind of wrapper or extension for that. For us, it was easier just we write what's like RxSwift there and move to Combine, and it works actually. Like at the beginning, we like kind of worried, like because RxSwift in our architecture is heavily used, but with the iterations, we just remove all the RxSwift there, and we are like 100% Combine. And so far, I think we don't have any issues. There is maybe one thing what we are missing, and there is like Rx counter, which we really love in the like architecture, and it was used. And right now, we still didn't find like the best approach how we can like managing the memory leaks with the combines. But with the rest of the things, what we did, it was okay. So hopefully I gave you a good answer. Maybe I didn't, but
it was meant for like we have a bit bigger code base with
okay.
RxSwift, and the transition, I would say it's not like a small project.
Yeah.
Transition from RxSwift to Combine like in a whole.
Okay.
So, in order to transition a little bit smoothly to like combine both of them in your.
Yeah, I can understand.
Yeah.
Actually, in that case, what I would do is maybe, as you said, like put some extensions to like transform the observable to the publisher for sure. But every new feature should be combined for sure, and then like slowly, you know.
Yeah, in small chunks.
Yeah.
Like I think we show you at the like previously, like we also like kind of worried like moving like from RxSwift to Combine. So what we did, like just like the like SwiftUI things, like it will be just 100% like Combine, and from that, like for the rest, we will like stick with the RxSwift, and we slowly like iterate. You know, like we started with the view model, we removed the RxSwift there, then we moved to our Combine, and like with these small iterations, we like approached like the architecture we have right now. So you can try this approach too, or maybe you will find something better.